have a different structure to their medium. The medium is the thing that carries the message. So theater would be the medium, you know, the stage would be the medium in theater, the film camera would be the medium in film, etc., etc. The microphone, the medium in anime. So they all have different restrictions on them that make you do things that aren't normal. If you could just pretend and film it, which is my favorite way to make movies. My favorite way to make movies is to let actors play in a playground that I sort of set up. And when I make movies, actors oftentimes they'll be doing stuff acting-wise, and then sometimes they ruin the take because they'll be like doing it, and I'll be rolling, and they'll be like, oh, are we rolling? Like, we're going now? And I'm like, yeah, I was already recording that. I like to sort of capture things naturally, and that's sort of documentary style. And that's the most natural acting you can get. It's sort of like classroom acting. We may get to some of that today. But film puts a structure on you to where you have to remember what you did, because they do a wide shot like this, and if you, like, the wide shot is me coming up and saying something as I come up, and I go like that. I have to remember in the medium and in the close that I set this down and then started talking. Because if in the medium or close, I start talking and then set this down, they can never use those two together. So that's one of the sort of structures of film acting that forces you to be inside your head and not just pretending. Because if you're just pretending, you don't have to worry about it. Same thing with voice acting. With voice acting, you have the structure of the anime and the flaps that the character has already, you know, got in place, drawn by the Japanese. So you have to give yourself over to those flaps to make sure that you may have an intention to say the line a certain way, but it's not going to fit in the flaps. So then you as an actor have to flip out of the pretend mode and into the sort of professional mode and say, well, how do I do that in that certain structure and still sound angry, or still sound sad, or still sound like I'm in love? So the medium always gives you different opportunities for different ways of solving problems. Yes?
What do you think is easier, voice acting or film acting?
They both have sort of difficulties, and they both have easy parts. The easiest part about voice acting, as compared to film acting, is that in voice acting, you can be wearing your shorts, you can be sweaty, you can have morning face, nobody's looking at you physically, so you only have to worry about what your voice sounds like. On film acting, as opposed to voice acting, like the costume has to be right, your makeup has to be right, you're constantly worried that, because even continuity with like your hair becomes an issue. So like your hair is this, you know, like a little piece gets out of place, and then they can't use that take with the other one because your hair doesn't look right. It's like, why is his hair spazzing out? So that's sort of one thing easy in one as compared to the other. The harder thing with voice acting is matching the flaps. And the way the industry is getting very competitive now, you have to be really good at it. You have to be able to throw those words into the flaps properly, almost instantaneously. Trust the writing and trust the writers have done their job correctly and say the line the way it are. There's not as much leeway to sort of have your own personal creative input sometimes in voice acting. In film acting, that same thing can happen, because a lot of times, especially in like network TV shows, you're just a meat puppet. They're like, actor, get away. Okay, now say lines. So they're not really interested in what you have creatively either. Yes?
What was your first initial desire? Film, voiceovers, all of the above?
Well, I can tell you this. The first thing I was cast in and then denied the role was a remake of The Empire Strikes Back, where I was to play R2-D2, filmed by my brother on 8mm. I was very short, and we were going to film the Dagobah scene with Luke and Yoda and R2-D2, and I thought I was a shoo-in for R2-D2 because I had helped build the cardboard R2-D2. And when the day of filming came along, I was tricked into going into the basement, and then my brother and Webb Tilney left, and I was left at home alone. And my entertainment lawyer says that I have cause for a suit, should I want to take on, even at this late of a date, because I was denied the role that was promised to me in a verbal contract. So, even from the very youngest time, we always were making films and wanted, wanted to be a film actor. And we started, acting. My actual first acting experience was voice acting. And this comes from very, very young. The first time I ever tried acting in sort of a public format was voice acting. And it was, when we were young, there was one telephone and it hung on the wall and it had a rotary dial. I know, it's crazy. And if you wanted privacy, you had to drag the long cord into the pantry in the kitchen and talk in there. And that's sort of how, things were done back then. But if the phone ever dared to ring during dinner, God forbid, because then it was just an opportunity, whoever could get to the phone first and be like, "Hello, we are glad you called Tom's Pizza. What kind of pizza can I get you?" And it was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I was calling Judy Huber." "No, there is no Judy Huber here." And then they would hang up and we'd be like, and then they call back and someone else would pick it up. "Oh, it's great, I told you a lot." And then, so it was always just about trying to do different, funny voices. So, my first gigs were voice acting gigs. Yes?
How do you think your life would be different if you didn't pursue acting?
If I didn't pursue acting, I think I would have always done something creative. I am a writer as well. I've written several screenplays. One has been produced, one is in production, one hopefully will be in production soon. I probably would have done writing of some sort, and actually I'm kind of transitioning myself towards writer, director, and I'll do acting when my friends ask me to do acting, and of course I'll do Star Trek Continues till we don't do Star Trek Continues anymore. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I'm talking to McCoy. Just me and Carl Urban, it's whatever. I would probably be a writer of some sort if I were not an actor. But I am a writer and also an actor. My girlfriend Jessica and I are writing a Snow White and Rose Red children's book. I'll write it, she's illustrating it. I'm writing it in verse. So it'll sound like a Dr. Seuss book, kind of. Same anapestic tetrameter, the same verse rhyme scheme. Big words. Oh, I use big words all the time. It makes me feel better than you. Yes, it does. I feel better. Yeah, it's superior. I really do. No, question, yes.
With voice acting, do you ever find yourself alone talking in all the characters' voices?
Typically not alone. And I say typically. I say that and then I think, oh no, actually I do talk in silly voices by myself all the time. A lot of times you get gigs or auditions, and so you practice the auditions by yourself. I like to do lots of different voices. I like adding voices to my repertoire. I've added Russian to my repertoire recently because I was Russian bad guy in a movie called Amerigeddon. Yes, it's called Amerigeddon. That is all you need to know about movie. And I'm a Russian bad guy. And it's directed by Chuck Norris' son. So, and the director just told me it's coming out in theaters this September. I know, I'm hoping it's a Sharknado, man. It's called Amerigeddon. Amerigeddon. It's about, the UN taking over America with an EMP blast and Texans not wanting to give up their guns. Because we wouldn't, man. We wouldn't give up our guns. We'd shoot them Russians. Yes?
How often when you are chosen to play a role, do you find yourself either being directed into how the characters acts and or sounds, or how much of it do you find yourself putting your own thought into it?
Pretty much when it is a stage role, I get the most say in how the character is portrayed. When it's a film role, there's a little bit more restriction from the director because they've got the whole vision. Hopefully you trust the director and they have the best vision for the whole film. When it's voice work at Funimation particularly, they know exactly what they want, and they know a lot of times exactly how they want you to say it. Most of the directors up there, some of them have a little bit more artistic or creative sensibilities and are able to trust their actors a little more. Chris Sabat in particular, one of his things he says all the time is, you'll get a take from an actor the way you want it, and then you should really let them have their freedom, because a lot of times they'll say something in a way that you never thought it could be said. And it's what makes an anime unique. It's what makes an anime amazing, is when the actors feel like they're really invested in it and they get to sort of do their own thing. Yes?
So, as a person who does voices, when somebody with a wonderful accent asks a question, are you listening to the question or trying to figure out how to do that voice?
I'll tell you this, when I was in Dublin, I spent the whole time just listening, and then I ended up in a bar asking them to show me, and they lined up all their people. They're like, this country accent here, right there, that's a Dublin accent, and so they had all the people lined up lined up the accents for me. And when I was in Poland too, listening to all the Eastern European dialects, was really interesting. But yeah, I'm always listening to dialects and voices and the way people say things. My girlfriend has the most interesting sort of, and I guess it's a California thing. She's from San Diego, but she's just, a couple of her vowels feel like they got twisted in a mixer somewhere. And she says, it's not bagel and it's not bagel, but it's somewhere in between bagel and bagel. Bagel. I can't do it. And she doesn't say fool. And she doesn't say full. She says somewhere when she's full, she says full. And it's just slightly off, and I can't imitate it, and it drives me crazy. But I love it. She's like, stop making fun of me. I'm like, no, it makes you more beautiful. Yes?
Elise, how many voices do you think you have in your repertoire, and how long did it take you to master something? Like you sing in Russian, it took time, so...
Yeah, typically I can get a dialect in about 15, 20 minutes. And when I say I can get a dialect in 15, 20 minutes, when you learn a dialect, you don't have to learn the whole thing. I always give the example of Irish, if you learn because the thing that makes a dialect sound wrong or bad is not what you're not doing right, it's what you think you're doing right, but it's actually wrong. That's what'll make a dialect sound false. So if you're learning the Irish dialect has a very clear change in it from I, the long I sound, to I, like an UH-EEE, so it's I, buy, try, lie, fry. I try to buy and lie with the fries. So that if all I do is change that one vowel sound, I can still sound like I'm Irish, just subtly enough, and then it starts to sound Irish a little more, and then I'm trying to buy it and lie it with the fries. So, and you find sentences that have a lot of the I sound in them, and you just practice that one sound. And I believe in morphic fields, which is a theory of memory that involves magnetic fields and not storing memories in your brain, so that once you start to get the bit of a dialect, you start to tap into the morphic field of that dialect, and if you allow yourself to relax, you are taken over by an evil spirit. Yes?
If you have children, do you sometimes do voices for them?
If I have children.
Yeah.
I have 8 children. Oh no, that's just said a tragedy. Everybody's like,
Well, I
8 children, don't you know what causes that? No idea. Yeah, my children something, Dad, use your real voice. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. They're like, come on. But they do I've often read stories to my children and let them pick out whole book series that I would read to them. And I do all the different voices. And they're starting to do it now too, so that's interesting. Yes?
So there's probably a lot of people in here that want to start acting or voice acting. How did you start?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we should get this question solidly out of the way. Raise your hand if you're interested in pursuing acting as a career. Okay, good. Yeah, excellent, excellent. So let me go ahead and give you my sort of treatise on acting or voice acting. The first thing is, if you want to be a voice actor in anime, you should be an actor, first and foremost. Dedicate yourself, like, that's the big test of, like, can I be an anime voice actor, is, do you want to be an actor for the rest of your life? If you ask yourself that question, or ask yourself the question, can you imagine yourself doing anything else for the rest of your life and never acting again? And if the answer is no, then yeah, you should be an actor. Now that doesn't mean you shouldn't have other things you do, other hobbies you pursue, other parts of your career you develop, being a grip or a producer or a first AD. I've done all these things. Boom op, script adapter, construction worker, teacher. I mean, you do teach workshops, do puppet shows, dress up in costume characters, do parades. I think my very first paid acting gig, I dressed up in a rat costume and wore an exterminator's number across it and walked in a parade for $40 for 3 hours in Texas heat in 102. It was horrible. But so if you answer the question, yes, I want to act for the rest of my life, which doesn't mean you have to give up anything else you love to do as well. It just means, yes, I'm going to be acting forever. Then if you want to be a voice actor in anime, the best way to do it, in my opinion, like the shortest route to it, and it may take 5 or 7 or 10 years, but be the best actor you can be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Because the big joke is that, because you think there's billions of actors in Dallas, there's not. If we got all the actors in Dallas together, all the working actors, not the people who say they're actors, but the ones who actually do the acting, if you got them all together, it's probably maybe 400 or 500 of us. It's really not that much. Maybe 1,000 if you include, because there's whole sections of actors who never touch each other. The commercial, industrial people who make their bread and butter doing that, never talk to the Funimation people, maybe. But if you go to Dallas-Fort Worth and be the best actor you can be, eventually you will bump into the Funimation people. Eventually you will find the agent who knows how to get you the audition at Funimation. And that would be the shortest route to that. Your dream is I want to work on the season 4 of Attack on Titan. Then, yeah, go right now, because you got to go quick. The other way to be a voice actor is the sort of screw attack or DBZ abridged way, which is, both of those things are awesome. If you have some sort of thing you want to do on YouTube that you would lend your voice, I was, do the example hello, I am Mr. Bottle, and you videotape it and put it on YouTube, and 1 billion hits later, you're like, I'm rich and covered in money. I think it's a little harder than that. I've never actually tried, but you should just do it and pretend it's that easy. But if you, I give the example of Sarai from Star Trek, the little girl in the Star Trek show, already has a YouTube channel, and her parents are pushing it, and she's got little buttons, and she's at this convention, and she reviews old Trek episodes, and, she's 6 or whatever, so she's going to, by the time she's 10, maybe have 20,000 subscribers on her YouTube channel. And it's like, if you have something that you would do forever and never get paid for it, that you can put on YouTube, whether it's, a simple animation like South Park started out as, or simple animation like the Screw Attack guys started out as, or even the DBZ Abridged guys, well, they had their animation for them, but they've gotten much better as the years have gone on. You start it and do it, and eventually you find the 150,000 other people on the internet that also think whatever you think is awesome is awesome. And that's enough to sustain a life. And then it's enough to get you at conventions, and then you meet other people who are, actors or producers or video games. I always encourage people to stop by the indie video game section at a convention and meet the indie game developers and give them your information and say, hey, I do voices for video games. You should call me up if you need one. And do stuff for free, too. I always say you can do one thing for any producer for free once, the first one. Like any producer, any director asks me to do something for free, if I have the time, I typically don't have the time now, but if I had the time, I usually say yes. Like some guys I really have this great game and I want you to do a voice in it. I'm like, okay, send me the script and I'll do it. Or, voice acting voice acting is really cheap, $50 an hour, and you can get so much done in an hour. So it's like you can get top-notch voice talent for $50 in the video game. But if you want to do voice acting, you can go pursue, you know, the tree when it's really, really a sapling and let it grow into a giant Funimation. And you just sort of plant your flag early, and you end up with. And I still do it. I still take calls and do interviews and do auditions and record things for small, tiny indie game people or anime people because you never know when they're going to be the next huge thing. And they don't even have to be huge. They can just be moderately successful, and that's a good thing for you. Yes?
When it comes to acting and voice acting, a lot of other actors will say like career inspiration to look up to. So like voice actors like Billy West or going back to Email Blanc. Who's been your biggest like source of inspiration that made you want to do it or say, you know, I like the way this guy did it, I want to, you know, try to do it the way this person did?
You know, I was never a cult of personality actor guy. I never sort of like looked up to different actors. I looked up to the process. I looked up to, I mean, like the guy I look up to the most is probably Shakespeare. And I pursue and prefer, if I had to do one thing for the rest of my life, it would just be Shakespeare. In the mountains, covered in jello. I don't know. I just chose that. But yeah, Shakespeare is the master of rhythm and verse and language, and he makes you the best actor. And it's that same sort of morphic field thing I talked about, a deposit of memory. A lot of actors talk about once they get to a certain point in a Shakespeare role, they're in the groove, that sort of electronic memory groove that all actors have deposited on Drukio. And you feel like you're taken over, and that the Shakespeare verse takes you over. And you don't really have any control over it anymore. You're just kind of being run by the character. And to me, that's the most beautiful part of it. In terms of like switching voices and being crazy, that Robin Williams was a big inspiration for me in terms of that. I always thought his comedy was really funny. And now he's dead. I know, it's really sad. Yes? You have the same birthday as Shakespeare? You need to do great things. I was born on Hitler's birthday. You need to just chill out. I know, right? 420. What? Yes, question in the back.
So we had Yuri Lowenthal here one year, and he was asked, what do you think sets voice actors apart? And he said that to him it was effort sounds.
Yes,
that's one
true.
of those difficult things to master in voice acting.
True. Yeah, effort sounds and volume for distance, like understanding how the scene is drawn, so that I'm talking to you way over there, or I know you're right here up next to me. And then the effort sounds like, I'm covered in heavy teddy bears, or whatever. You know, so that you can do the physicalization noises. And that really, like the people who don't do it properly or can never do it right are brilliant actors but can't work at Funimation, typically it's because they can't do those effort sounds. And they don't understand that what it really just takes is diaphragmatic abdominal sort of involvement. Oh, you're just kind of trying to squeeze but not poop. Which is basically the whole nugget of Funimation. Try to squeeze. Don't move. Yes, question.
How does one successfully, or should I say more easily, access their diaphragm in the first place?
We have, first of all, to know what your diaphragm is, it's a muscle that pulls down on the lungs. So it pulls down and squishes your belly out when you breathe in, and it pulls up and squishes your belly in as you exhale. That sort of abdominal that will access, you can feel it when you breathe really deeply into your diaphragm, your belly drops out, your lungs fill up, and you look like a yoga person. All those yoga people always have kind of soft bellies. I know it's real cool in America to be like Mr. Washboard Stomach, but that really hurts. Like, it's much nicer to just have a relaxed belly. And then you can tighten it up if you need to. But like in general, having that belly be soft is what gives you more diaphragmatic room. So good job. He was patting his baby. He loved it. Loved his baby. Sorry. I'm a little tired this morning. Yes?
As you've encountered aspiring actors and voice actors, what is one thing that most folks maybe don't realize or is counterintuitive to getting into the industry? What have you encountered?
A lot of people think that probably the most important thing to lose, to get out of your mind, to overcome, is the idea that there is anything, and I mean anything, out there that you're waiting for before you can do whatever it is you want to do. There is nothing, and especially nowadays, there is nothing at all that stops you from being an actor right now. Like, the first step to being an actor, to being a professional actor, is simply saying, I am a professional actor. I may not have booked my first gig yet, but I am a professional actor. That is what I do, that is the thing I do for my job. So the idea that there's some gatekeeper out there that you have to knock on with the right words and the right headshot and the right resume and the right reel and the right demo tape, the idea that somehow I don't have to start pursuing my dream because there are gatekeepers preventing me, that is the number one thing that will keep you from being anything you want to be. And whether you want to be a writer or, it doesn't matter. And the other thing you should do is you should start getting specific about it. If you want to be an actor and you're waiting for someone to find you and be like, you're perfect, I'm going to make you a star. Number one, that usually destroys people. Because they're being given something, they're being used by someone to create a commodity. And when you're used, you typically end up broken. So if you're in control of it and say, I'm a professional actor, and you just start pursuing it, you can do it right then, today. The other thing is to, probably the best way to counteract those thoughts is to go out and fail quickly. A lot of people think that the key to success is learning how not to fail. And that is absolutely a lie. That is the biggest lie I've ever heard. The key to success is being able to fail quickly and fail a lot. And be okay with it. And then get better. And then fail more. And keep failing. I feel like my day is wasted if I haven't failed in some way. If I go through my day and it's like, I did everything perfectly right today, that's a failure to me. The real test of your ability to do things in life is if you can constantly be stretching to that next level of some sort and make a mistake. We put children up in front of classes at, age 8 or 9 and say, stand up here and talk to this class about this book you read. And that is a terrifying thing for a child. They've done a study on the human body, and the most stressful thing you can do to the human body as an occupation is to ask it to land a $40 million aircraft on an aircraft carrier at night in the middle of an ocean. That's the most stressful job. Nothing stresses the human body as a job more than that. Guess what was just barely behind that?
Public speaking?
Public speaking. So when you stand up in front of a group of people to do your, I read Alice in Wonderland, why do I feel like dying? That's because your limbic system, your adrenal system is saying, run, kill, and those are both bad ideas. In any public speaking adventure, any acting, run and kill is not your option. But your reptilian brain is flooding you with adrenals saying run, or kill, fight, or flight. And we don't recognize, in everything we're going to do here today, I'm going to sort of plow into the exercises that we're going to do, is to give you the ideas of what to do when you have those feelings. Number one is to remember that failure is okay. It's okay to fail. And you're not going to die, unlike the dude with the $40 million aircraft, who can totally die. Right? You're not going to die getting up in front of a group of people. Never, never, ever. Probably, if you're going to do anything as an actor, learn how to breathe. And you learn how to breathe by learning how to breathe in life. Like, we spend a lot of time breathing, especially at Comic-Cons, breathing like this. Right? And so you're full of, anxiety a lot of times. Why am I excited? So you have to learn to breathe. Breathe deeply. Breathe fully. Take your time. Also understand that your brain and breath, your inspiration to speak, works perfectly. It works perfectly when you're just going through life. You go up to the movie theater ticket window and you go, I think I want to see Terminator 2 at 4 o'clock. You almost never go, I think I want to see Terminator 2. Like, you never run out of breath for your natural thoughts. So the idea on stage is to be natural and let the natural inspiration and breath happen and then speak what comes next. But cueing that adrenal system is probably the most important thing. Like, learning how to deal with that terrifying situation and breath is number one. And number two is to get out of yourself. Focus on anything else other than you. And you can do that with this sort of sociopathic or psychopathic mentality like, I am not failing. And understand that you're going to be okay. So let's get our first group of, were there any other burning questions that needed to be answered? Yes, last one.
When you're doing a movie, do you sometimes show up in what the character actually looks like?
For auditions, yes, quite often we will show up like that. And for independent movies, many times the part of the deal is they know that you're going to show up in costume yourself. So yeah, you have to show up sometimes dressed like the character that you have. Let's have my 12 people come on up and make a circle around me. Circle, facing inwards towards me. So, I was telling you guys that the most important thing is to get over that sort of adrenal reaction to allow you to pretend and play again. Because the thing is, when you have something to focus on, otherwise known as an objective, your objective, that's the most important thing in acting, all public speaking, everything you do always has an objective. You always have an objective as a human being. You're walking through a hallway, you have an objective, something you want to do. You have decided you're going to do something, and that's your objective. Your objective today was to come to this workshop. Now you are sitting here and you may have another objective. Now you're standing in this circle and you may have another objective, like, oh God, don't poop your pants. So the objective is, holding in your bodily functions. Or maybe like, I don't want to be embarrassed. So your objective is to try not to be embarrassed. So you've got objectives as humans right now. So when you're acting, your human that you're acting as also has objectives. So the stronger your objective is, the easier it is to act. And I'm going to do this exercise where you have a really strong objective and show you how easy it is to act. Now, your objectives in life and on stage and in film always come up against number two, not pooping. No. Why am I on a pooping thing? That's really gross. Somebody stop me. So your objective always comes up against an obstacle. So the stronger your obstacle and the stronger your objective, the easier the acting. So we're going to give you a strong objective and a strong obstacle in this circle, and then you're going to see how easy it is to act. This game is called Donkey. Donkey! And the way this game works is I'm going to point at someone and call out either horse, elephant, rabbit, or donkey. And the person in the center and the person to the right and the person to their left are going to create that animal. So we're going to practice all the animals now, so you're going to know how to make them. And then I'm going to add an obstacle to this objective, and then we're going to do the game. So if I were to point here and say elephant, you make the trunk like that, right? And then ear like that, and another ear like that. Yeah, like this. Yeah, good. Yeah, perfect. No, you're good. No, you were perfect. That was talking to the ears. Okay, so relax, elephant. Relax, elephant. Relax, elephant. Good. Relax. Now the next one is rabbit. If I were to point here and say rabbit, you do this. And then we get big rabbit ears on either side. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Rabbit. Yes, great. Rabbit. Relax. Rabbit. Good. Relax. Rabbit. Like that. There you go. Oh, she almost kicked her nose. And relax. And rabbit. Very good. And relax. The next one is horse. If I were to point here and say horse, you just kind of bend forward slightly. Little triangle ears on either side. Triangle ears. And relax and horse. And relax and horse. Why does your horse have a triangle? That's good. You gotta relax and horse.
See, you're running for it.
So the fourth one is donkey. If I point here and say donkey, you don't move at all. Donkey, donkey, donkey. Good, you did it. Now, that is the objective. Now I add in the obstacle. The obstacle is I'm going to be counting to 10. And if you're not in the proper position by the time I count to 10, you are out and you failed, which we've already said is a good thing, right? And we'll applaud you. And the circle gets small. So, does everyone think you understand the game? Okay, I don't like to just start everybody off with sort of hyper-adrenal reactions. I'd like to just kind of coast into the elephant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Horse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm not sure if that was on purpose. Elephant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Horse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That horse had 3 years. Rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Horse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think she made it. Rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're both out. What's your name? Reese, and you're Lydia. Give her a round of applause. Elephant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Horse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Get your baby.
The horse was supposed to bend forwards. I'll allow it. Rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Horse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Elephant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Horse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I got a free pair of glasses. Those are nice. Elephant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Horse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Donkey. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh! Happy? Patricia, give them a round. Ready? Donkey. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, what's your name? Terry. Give Terry a round of applause. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Simone, there was the saddest. She was like... Rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Horse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Elephant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Pretty good. Elephant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Horse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Horse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Elephant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, give it a round of applause. You're freaking out. Be calm. Be calm. Donkey! What's your name? Give her a round of applause. I'm going to take this moment right here to remind you that acting involves... Oh, scary person. Acting always involves relaxation first. And that's what the donkey teaches you. Donkey! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Donkey! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Donkey! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can do this for a long time. Donkey! 1, 2, 3, 4... Horse! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Give Anthony a round. Involves being relaxed, but not too relaxed. That's one of my favorite moments on stage, whenever two actors are certain it's the other actor's line. And then the one realizes, oh God, the horses are outside. You're like, oh God, that was so magical for me. Elephant, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh God! Horse, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Rabbit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's like a Egyptian. Okay, I think they've all done it. Give them a round of applause. So, the great thing about that exercise is it shows you exactly how, because one of the things people always say about acting, they always say like, well, I don't know what to do with my hands. But if you have a strong, excuse me, much better. If you have a strong enough objective, you're like, you don't care what you do with your hands. You're just completely focused on the objective. So you're not worried at all about your physical body or doing silly things. So I covered the relaxation, I covered the objective, I covered the obstacle. So that the intensity of the obstacle, that's something you can always adjust yourself as an actor. You can make it more important, whatever it is you want. A lot of times when Shakespeare plays fail, it's because the actors haven't made their obstacles or their objectives strong enough. So that Hamlet's need to find out, to prove who killed his father, has to be really, really strong. To make him go over the edge to know whether or not he's, am I crazy? Am I faking this? I don't know. Am I really nuts? Any questions so far?
Yes.
When you're playing a character who's been, I don't want to say, iconized by another actor as you are with playing Bones.
You're right, Dr. McCoy.
How much of that actor's performance informs your performance?
A lot of it. I mean, especially doing Star Trek Continues, because I think I would have a slightly different take on the character if we were doing a brand new reboot. And I would probably have the same take on the character. What I would have a different take on would be the acting style. Because Star Trek was acted in a very specific acting style. The camera movements were a specific style, the framing, the setups, the way they interacted with each other was a very specific style. And it was that style just bridging out of the actor's studio, just bridging out of the method, as it were, Marlon Brando and Paul Newman and those types. Yeah, absolutely. So that's why Shatner appears, he appears really well in Star Trek, because he's pursuing a new form of acting, which is a much more behavioral form than a presentational form. Dr. McCoy was portrayed a little bit more presentationally, although he gets a little rough and loose too. So, and there's room for it. There's just not as much room for any sort of behavioral mannerisms. There's a bit more of a sort of presentational movement and a presentational way of behaving and grabbing or talking. You know, it's not as realistic as I would prefer to do the acting were it in a new, like a brand new format. But because it's in that format, it is kind of like doing Shakespeare in a way. Yes?
Is there any specific character from any movie that you've always wanted to play?
A character from a movie that I've always wanted to play. I would do anything Shakespeare. I'd like to do Henry V in Shakespeare. I think I might be too old for that now. Because he was a fairly young king. I would like to do, well, I'm starting to get to an age where there's going to be a bunch of new, really cool characters I get to do. It's funny because the older you get, the more powerful your characters, especially if you're a white guy. Because white guys are powerful people in the universe because we're evil and we control everything. Sorry. But so as you get older and older, you get to play more powerful people. I'm not playing an assistant to someone. I'm playing the mayor, or I'm playing, a governor. Those are roles that are not outside my purview now. Whereas when I was in my 20s, I could not play those roles. So that's sort of interesting to me as I get older. Yes?
What Shakespeare productions have you been in?
Let's see, I did Merchant of Venice, I did Julius Caesar, I did Taming of the Shrew, I did Merry Wives of Windsor, where I had to do a Welsh dialect for that. which was fun because my very first acting role was with the actor who played Gimli, who is Welsh.
Yes.
Yeah, so I realized that Welsh was really hard until I just started to imitate Gimli. So my character of the priest was a basic imitation of Gimli the dwarf. A mine! They call it a mine! So that's how my priest sounded. Yes, question.
What are some of the most effective tools that they've used, or your preferred tools that they've used to get the best performance?
Directors, typically if they give me the parameters of what they want and just sort of, encourage me to communicate with my fellow actor, that's usually the way to get the best performance out of me. The directors I love the most are the ones who are able to let me do that and keep me on task with the sort of film checklist you have to have in terms of continuity or keeping my chin cheated to the light, or, like the sort of specific weird puppetry things you have to do when you're doing film acting. Because a lot of times, like in film acting, like to get the shot right, you're doing the scene, squatting while holding something like this so that it looks like it's in the corner of the frame, and then you're talking and you're going to have to go like this and pull it up. Like sometimes you're doing very, very unnatural things where the scene may just supposedly the scene you just grab the cup like that, but you're squatted down and you're holding the cup yourself and you're grabbing the, so you're doing weird things that you wouldn't normally do. If directors are able to give me those things and make sure I'm sort of staying on task with those and allow me to be free, that's usually the ones that are the best. Yes.
As a producer or director, do you find yourself like always casting if you know you're around actors, or does your mind only have that mentality at auditions?
I typically don't audition because I know everybody that I want. Now, the next film that I'm gearing up for, I will audition because there are people I want in it that I don't know if they can do it because it's Shakespeare. I'm doing an adaptation of Taming of the Shrew that's present day, but in Shakespearean verse. And there are even very famous people that I meet at conventions who I'm like, oh, you'd be awesome. Do you do Shakespeare? Because Jeremy Renner was at Comic Palooza last weekend, and he's an amazing actor. But do you do Shakespeare? Because I'm not going to cast someone who doesn't do Shakespeare. Because a lot of times actors think I'm an amazing actor, I can do Shakespeare. But Shakespeare's the way I want it done, it's a very specific thing. The way it's been done in the past on film, they drop it down and it's very casual and conversational and it loses all of its power, in my opinion. Yes, question? Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself stuck in one side of acting, like if you've been doing voice acting for a while? Do you ever find yourself stuck in voice acting and not getting as much done on film, like on screen?
Probably the most important skill I've learned in this section of my career, which you're not at this section of my career. Right. When you're young, you have to try to be scrapping and trying to. And actually, I think if you're young and you think about it properly, you can apply this mentality that I have now. Maybe the maturity I have now allows me to have this mentality. But the mentality is that I'm always choosing what I'm going to do next in my mind. I'm always calling that out to the universe and allowing the collapse of the waveform in terms of choices that can be made to the actual future. I'm always allowing that to collapse to the point where I want it exactly to be. So if I'm stuck in something, I just let go of it. I'm not stuck in it. I'm not stuck in that any more than I'm stuck in my shoes. I just take them off. I'm not stuck anymore. Anytime I feel like I'm stuck in something, or that's usually a scarcity mentality, and it's sort of very ego-driven. And it usually will happen in comparison to somebody else, because I will only feel stuck in anime voice acting if I see other anime voice actor friends getting great film roles, and then my ego will go, well, why aren't I getting those? And it's, well, Chuck, listen to yourself. You're not as interested in getting great film roles as you are making movies yourself. So put your attention and intention towards that and allow that to happen in your life, because that's what you say you really want. Then allow that to happen slowly. The other thing that is a really important skill to have as an actor, crafting your career, is to be able to look at it in terms of 3 or 4 years. Like, what specifically do you want to do? Like, I want to be directed by Steven Spielberg as Don Quixote in space. Like, that is my goal for the next 10 years. I would actually be amazing at that. I'd need to be about 20 years older. 5 minutes left, thank you. I'd need to be about 20 years older to do it. But, you know, if you can get really specific as to what you want to do with your career, that specific, and then lay in the course towards that, you can make that happen. And guess what? If you don't make that happen, and it's like, oh, it was directed by J.J. Abrams, you know, or I did it with my friends, and it's an indie hit at, you know, Cannes or whatever. You know, there's a bunch of different ways to fail that are awesome. Yes.
So when young actors are auditioning, are there anything in those auditions that you look for, or you don't look for, to say, hey, this girl guy is it, or they did this, and you know, they did something in the audition that kind of makes you go, you know what, probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, the most important thing is to be a professional, and what that means is the audition has a certain format to it, and I highly recommend if you're going to be an actor to take at least one audition workshop, one workshop with a reputable casting director in the city. Take one, don't take a bunch of them. Don't keep taking workshops because that's how you're going to get it. No, take one so you learn the format. Oh, this is where my headshot goes, this is where I stand, this is generally how these things go. After that, after the sort of structure of audition that you're not screwing up, the most important thing is I always treat the audition like my first rehearsal. And that's all I do. I treat it like it's my first rehearsal, and I do it exactly as I would want to do it. And then the director will give you changes. And if you can't change it, you're probably not, like, you have to be able to change to what the director gives you. They give you direction. So, and then you don't argue with it. But if you don't understand, I always go, do you mean, like, because this will happen at Funimation all the time. They'll say, nah, Dad, give me a little deeper or something. I'm like, do you mean deeper? Do you mean deeper? And they're like, the second one, you know. So you give them a choice. A lot of times if you don't understand something, you can reflect it back in A or B choice. You already are cueing the director into selecting something of you. Because I'm saying, do you like this or this? They'll go, oh, I like it that way. And suddenly they're picking you. Because you're giving them, if the director gives you a choice, or gives you a direction, you say, I'm not sure I understand. Do you mean this or this? They'll go, oh, that. Or if it's neither of them, they'll go, no, I was thinking more this. And then you give them that. And they're like, yes. So you're teaching the director to pick you, yes.
Right now, going off of what you just said, obviously you need some form of range with your own ability to act physically or with your vocal acting and whatnot. Is there any sort of exercise you go through to help you expand yourself?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. The most important thing you could do, and I do this all the time. Oh, what was the one I invented the other day? It was amazing, and now I can't remember it. But, shoot. Jessica will remember it. Hopscotch tackle. I can't remember. But if you want to be an actor, one of the easiest things you can do is to pick a tongue twister every week or every month or every 2 weeks or every day and do it for 30 seconds a day until you become an expert at that tongue twister. Forever. So that, like, the simplest one is Peggy Babcock. Peggy Babcock, Peggy Babcock, Peggy Babcock, Peggy Babcock, Peggy Babcock. Everyone try it 5 times fast. Ready? Peggy Babcock, Peggy Babcock. Oh, you can stop. It's horrible. So if you pick a tongue twister and become an expert at it, she stood on the balcony inexplicably mimicking him hiccuping and amicably welcoming him in. So you become an expert at whatever tongue twister it is. The physical act of talking and acting requires a musculature in your diction. And everyone can become an expert at that. And it helps you in your regular life, too. If you start to feel like that nervous thing like that, and I can't my words, that's muscle. It's like the nerves cue the muscles to be scared. And you can solve that with proper focus and just sort of like pushing your muscles through it. Yes?
I want to know, where have you done your Shakespeare plays? Have you gone to any Shakespeare festivals?
Yeah, I've done primarily Trinity Shakespeare in Dallas, Fort Worth, and then also the Goodman Theater in Chicago. I played played Bolingbroke, and Richard was second there. Yes, Becca.
So off of that, you said that you look for something specific in Shakespearean actors. Is there any advice that you can give people who are looking to focus in on Shakespeare or Shakespearean acting?
Yeah, if you have the money, like if you have the money to take any of the Shakespeare and Company workshops, if you Google Shakespeare and Company, it is from a voice and speech coach called Kristen Linklater, Freeing the Natural Voice. It is probably the best Shakespeare, some of the best Shakespeare training you can get. But to really train with Shakespeare, there's learning the verse and how the verse means things and how to do it properly makes a world of difference. Yeah.
Do you ever find, like when you get a script, is there anything that you can tell us that helps you remember lines?
Yeah, I do a lot of notations on the script itself, so that, and you can do simple, silly things, like if the cue line ends with the letter T, and your next line begins with the word tiger, you just sort of draw a line from that letter T to the tiger, and then when that cue line comes, you go, it ends with the T, tiger, and then you can kind of jump off that. You can do little teeny mnemonics like that. I do that through all my Shakespeare scripts. And then listening to things at night, listening to the script at night as you're going to sleep or before you're going to sleep has been shown to increase your recall the next morning. Your brain absorbs the information and puts it into its proper place. I think we're out of time, yes? Yes? What time is it? It is? Okay, I will be back at my table at 2 o'clock. Come meet me there should you wish to say hi and have a selfie or a hug.